Hey guys, tonight we are diving head first into a world that's as cold and hard as the shields its warriors carried. We're heading to ancient Sparta. Forget romance, forget cuddles, forget choosing your own life partner. In Sparta, love, marriage, and even the act of procreation were not personal matters. They were state controlled functions, designed with one single, ruthless goal in mind to forge the perfect soldier. Tonight, you're not just a listener, you are a Spartan. And fair warning, based on their standards, you might not even survive the first day. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop me a comment below and let me know what city you're listening from, and what time it is for you. I love seeing where our little community of night owls is spread out across the globe. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first sensation you register isn't warmth or a mother's gentle touch. It is a profound, biting cold. You have just been born, a messy, squalling bundle of potential. But the air in this part of Laconia feels thin and unforgiving. You are not yet a person. You are a product, fresh off the assembly line, waiting for quality control. There is no quiet cooing, no celebration. Instead, a tense, heavy silence hangs in the room, broken only by your own cries and the low murmur of your mother's exhausted breaths. Your father, a man you will barely know, lifts you from her. His hands are calloused and strong, but his touch is not tender. It is functional. He wraps you in a simple cloth, his face a mask of anxious pride. He has done his part. Now comes the part that is out of his hands. He carries you out of the simple, whitewashed home, and the crisp Spartan air hits your damp skin. The world is a blur of stark sunlight, the dark green of distant cypress trees, and the overwhelming scent of dust and wild herbs. The journey is short. You are taken to a place called the Lesche, a sort of public portico where the city's elders gather. These are not kindly grandfathers. These are weathered, scarred men, the Gerousia, a council of citizens over the age of 60. They are the living embodiment of Spartan law, and today, they are your judges, jury, and potential executioners. Your father presents you to them with a quiet deference that feels more like a subordinate reporting to a commander than a father showing off his child. One of the elders takes you. His grip is firm, impersonal. He unwraps the cloth, exposing you completely to the cool air and the scrutiny of a dozen pairs of ancient eyes. This is your first and most important test. You are turned over. Your limbs are examined. Your spine is felt. Your head is measured. They are looking for any sign of imperfection, any hint of weakness or deformity. Your crying is a good sign. It shows you have strong lungs. You are a piece of state property, and they are assessing your value. You are not so much a baby as you are a potential hoplite or a future hoplite breeder. There is a strange, almost apocryphal tale that the elders would sometimes dip a newborn in a basin of unmixed wine. The theory, as the later historian Plutarch tells it, was that a weak or epileptic infant would go into convulsions and perish, while a healthy one would become tempered and stronger. It is a brutal image, a baptism by alcohol. Welcome to the world's most intense HR department. The elder prods your tiny stomach, flexes your legs, he holds you up, and for a moment, you are just a silhouette against the bright Grecian sky. He is looking for the promise of a straight back, strong thighs, and an unblemished form. He is calculating your future utility to Sparta. Will you be able to carry a 50-pound bronze shield? Will you be able to endure a lifetime of hardship without complaint? Will you produce more children just like you? Your entire existence hangs on this silent, clinical appraisal. There is no room for sentiment. A weak clink weakens the entire chain. And in Sparta, the phalanx is everything. The silence stretches. Your father stands motionless, his jaw tight. Your fate, and in some ways his own honor, is being decided. If you are deemed unfit, if your back is slightly crooked, if a limb is malformed, if you are simply too small or frail, the verdict is swift and final. You would be taken to a deep chasm at the foot of Mount Taygetus, a place known as the Apio the Tay, the deposits. There, you would be left, abandoned to the elements, a flawed product, discarded. Of course, historians today are still locked in a fierce debate about this. Was this chilling practice of state-sanctioned infanticide a daily, systematic reality as the ancient writers, particularly Athens-aligned ones, wanted us to believe? Or was it an exaggeration, a piece of anti-Spartan propaganda designed to paint them as inhuman monsters? Archaeological digs at the supposed site haven't found the heaps of infant bones you would expect, turning up mostly adult remains. Perhaps exposure was a rare punishment for only the most severe cases, not the assembly line culling the stories suggest. But for you, in this moment, the debate is irrelevant. The elder turns you back over, his expression unreadable. He looks from you to your father, and then back to the other elders. A slow, almost imperceptible nod is exchanged. You have passed. A collective, unspoken sigh of relief. You are deemed worthy. You are granted the privilege of life. Your father takes you back, his grip slightly less dense. He has contributed a viable asset to the state. But as he carries you home, back to the arms of a mother who was powerless to intervene, you must understand one thing. You were not saved by love. You were approved by committee. Your life is not a gift. It is a loan from Sparta, and you will spend the rest of it paying it back. You are returned to your mother's arms. But the brief flicker of warmth is deceptive. The verdict of the elders has defined you. You are a girl. In another Greek city-state, say Athens, this might mean a life of seclusion, learning to weave, manage a household, and remaining largely invisible, confined to the women's quarters. But you are in Sparta. Your path is startlingly different, yet no less prescribed. Your existence has a single, crystal-clear purpose. You are a future vessel. Your womb is a national resource. Your childhood is not one of dolls and quiet indoor games. It is a blur of motion, sun, and sweat, while your male counterparts are being prepared for the agoge, the brutal military academy they will enter at age 7. You are enrolled in your own state-sponsored training program. The logic, in the cold calculus of Spartan society, is simple and inescapable. The state believes that strong, athletic women produce strong, athletic children. It is a principle of animal husbandry applied to human beings. To create a superior warrior, you must first build a superior incubator. So, you run. You run with the other girls under the relentless Peloponnesian sun, your bare feet pounding the hard-packed earth. You race each other, not for the simple joy of it, but with a fierce, ingrained competitiveness. A victory isn't just a personal triumph. It is a public declaration of your physical fitness, your eugenic worth. You learn to throw the javelin, not to hunt, but to strengthen your arms and back. You spin and launch the discus, feeling the satisfying pull in your shoulders, building the physique deemed ideal for childbirth. Your playground is the gymnasium. You wrestle. You grapple with other girls in the dust, learning leverage and strength. Your body slick with sweat and olive oil. There is nothing graceful or delicate about it. It is raw and functional. The scraped knees and bruised elbows are marks of honor, evidence that you are preparing your body for its ultimate duty. This public, physical education is shocking to outsiders. A visiting Athenian would be horrified to see young women exercising so vigorously, and often so publicly. And here is a detail that made other Greeks clutch their pearls. You and the other girls often train in the nude, or close to it, sometimes in processions or at festivals where young men are also present. The Spartan ideal was to strip away the artifice of modesty and privacy. Your body is not your own. It is an asset of the state, and its development is a matter of public interest. There is no room for the kind of self-consciousness that might exist elsewhere. You learn to see your own body and the bodies of others as instruments, machines to be perfected. So much for teenage awkwardness. This strange upbringing gives you a level of freedom unheard of for other Greek women. You can walk about the city freely. You can engage in witty, often sharp-tongued banter with men. You are educated. You learn to read, write, and are exposed to poetry and music, all believed to instill a sense of order and discipline. You are not sheltered or infantilized. You are hardened, and this is where historians love to argue. or Spartan women, with all this physical training and public visibility, the most liberated women in the ancient world. On the surface, it seems so. They could inherit and own property, often managing vast estates, while their husbands were away at war or living in the barracks. In a world where most women were legally dependents, a Spartan woman could be a formidable economic power. But then you have to ask, was this true freedom, or just a different kind of servitude? Your education isn't for your own enlightenment. It is to make you a better manager of a soldier's assets. Your physical training isn't for your own health or enjoyment. It is to ensure you can bear healthy children for the army. Your freedom of movement isn't a right. It is a practical necessity in a society where the men are perpetually absent. You are a highly specialized cog in the Spartan machine, given just enough autonomy to perform your function perfectly. Are you free, or are you just a queen bee? Granted a larger cage and a better diet for the good of the hive. The academic jury is still out on that one. As you grow, this ideology becomes second nature. You look at a girl who is frail or struggles in the races not with pity, but with a kind of disdain. She is a weakling. You feel a surge of pride when an elder praises your discus form, not because you are an individual achiever, but because you are fulfilling your design. The ultimate praise you can receive is that you look like you will bear strong sons. Your girlhood is a long, rigorous qualification process. You are being vetted, shaped, and prepared, not for a life of your own choosing, but for the moment you will be called upon to produce the next generation of shields for Sparta's wall. And as you reach your late teens, you can feel that moment approaching. The race has become more serious, the scrutiny more intense. You are no longer just a girl in training. You are a candidate, waiting for a placement. While your world is one of gymnasiums and the open air, a different reality is unfolding for the boy who might one day become your state-assigned husband. If you are the carefully cultivated soil, he is the seed, and his cultivation is a process of unyielding, soul-crushing pressure. He, too, survived the initial inspection by the elders. He was deemed a worthy investment, but his path from that moment is one of systematic dehumanization, designed to erase his identity and forge him into something else entirely. A Spartan hoplite. As a boy, his first 7 years are a brief, fleeting moment of near normalcy. He lives at home with his mother. That is you. In this alternate timeline, he plays. He learns the basics of Spartan virtue, obedience, respect for elders, and a laconic, clipped way of speaking. But this is just a prelude. A shadow hangs over this childhood, the knowledge that it is temporary. The state is merely loaning him to his family. On his 7th birthday, it ends. There is no negotiation. Men from the state arrive. He is taken from his home. Tears are a sign of weakness. He has already been taught to suppress them. He is led away to join the agoge, the infamous Spartan upbringing. It is less a school and more a brutal, all-encompassing military indoctrination that will consume the next 13 years of his life. He is no longer an individual child. He is now a member of a herd, a Agel, stripped of his name and given a new identity tied to his pack. His life becomes a carefully calibrated regimen of hardship. The goal is to produce men who are tough, disciplined, and utterly fearless. He is intentionally underfed. Hunger is a constant companion, a dull ache in his stomach that he must learn to master. The state believes that a lean, hungry boy will grow into a taller, more resilient man. It also serves another purpose. It encourages him to steal. And here we find one of those uniquely Spartan contradictions. He is taught that stealing is a crime, but getting caught stealing is the real crime. If he is caught trying to sneak food from a farm or a kitchen, he is not punished for the theft itself. He is whipped, brutally, for his incompetence. He is being trained to be cunning, resourceful, and stealthy, the skills of a perfect guerrilla warrior. He learns to move like a ghost, to lie with a straight face, to endure pain without flinching. His bed is a pile of reeds he must gather himself from the banks of the Eurotas River, with his bare hands, no knife allowed. In winter, he might add thistle down for a sliver of warmth, but comfort is the enemy. The cold is a teacher. Pain is a lesson. His clothes are a single tunic, worn year-round. Shoes are a luxury forbidden to him, the belief being that going barefoot will harden his feet for marching across any terrain. His education is relentless. He learns to read and write, but only enough for practical purposes, like reading orders. The bulk of his time is spent in physical training, running, wrestling, boxing, and weapons practice. He is pitted against older, stronger boys ambitious. No holds-barred fights. The instructors and elders watch, not to intervene, but to praise the one who shows the most ferocity and endurance, even in defeat. To show fear is to invite scorn. To cry out in pain is to guarantee a harsher beating. He is also immersed in a culture of absolute obedience. An elder can command any boy at any time, and the punishment for a moment's hesitation is swift and painful. He is taught to answer questions with the fewest possible words. The famous laconic wit. It is not just a stylistic choice. It is a reflection of a mindset that values action over talk, efficiency over elegance. One of the most debated and, frankly, creepy aspects of the agoge is the institutionalized relationship between an older warrior Aristescent and adolescent boy Aites. On paper, this was a mentorship. The older man was responsible for the boy's moral and military education. He was to be a role model, teaching the boy the Spartan code of honor. The relationship was supposed to be a shining example of platonic, martial love, a bond that would translate to the battlefield, where a man would fight more fiercely to protect the youth he had mentored. But was it always so platonic? This is a huge point of contention for historians, given the context of ancient Greece and the all-male, barrack-style living. It is almost certain that these relationships often crossed into the physical. Later writers like Plutarch insisted it was a chaste love, but he was writing with a certain Roman prudishness. Other sources, especially from rival city-states, paint a very different picture. The truth is likely somewhere in the middle, a system that was, at its core, about creating loyalty and unit cohesion, but was also ripe for exploitation and abuse. The state, for its part, seemed to turn a blind eye, as long as it didn't disrupt the military order. As the boy endures these years, everything that makes him an individual is scoured away. His love for his family is replaced by loyalty to his unit. His personal desires are replaced by the will of the state. He is being remade, forged in a crucible of hunger, pain, and psychological conditioning. He is not being raised. He is being weaponized. He is learning that his body is not his. It belongs to Sparta, just like yours, while the boys are being systematically brutalized in the agoge. Your own education continues its parallel, and equally strange, trajectory. You are a girl on the cusp of womanhood, and your life is an open book, read and judged by the entire community. Privacy, as you might think of it, is a foreign concept. Your development is a public project, and your body is the centerpiece. Imagine this. It is the day of the gym Nopa Ediae, the festival of naked youths. It is one of Sparta's most important religious festivals, a multi-day spectacle of war dances, choral performances, and athletic displays in honor of Apollo. The whole city turns out. The sun beats down on the Ager, the central public space. The air is thick with the scent of roasted meat, wine, and the dust kicked up by thousands and lead feet. And there you are, in the heart of it. You and the other girls of your age group are part of the main event. You are not a spectator. You are a performer. You will march in a procession, sing choruses celebrating Spartan heroes, and perform choreographed dances. And, true to the festival's name, you are likely wearing little more than a short, practical tunic, or perhaps nothing at all. This was seen as provocative or scandalous by the Spartans. It was a testament to the health and rigor of the state's future mothers. It was a eugenics fair disguised as a religious festival. You feel the eyes of the city on you, the elders, the active soldiers, even the boys from the agoge who are allowed to attend. They are all watching, evaluating. Does she run with grace? Is her body strong and straight? Does she carry herself with the confidence of a true Spartan daughter? You and your friends sing songs, and they aren't gentle lullabies. They are biting, satirical verses. You might sing in praise of the young men who have distinguished themselves in training. But you also sing songs that mercilessly mock the bachelors of the city, the aged lowai, men who have failed in their duty to marry and produce children. You publicly shame them for their failure to contribute to the state. It is a strange power to wield, the ability to heckle your elders as part of a state-sanctioned ritual. Your days are filled with the rhythms of the gymnasium. You don't just learn to run and throw. You learn what it means to push your body to its limits. One of the stranger and more debated physical activities you might have engaged in is a game called by basis. The goal was to stand straight and kick your own heels against your buttocks as many times as possible in a row. It sounds silly, like an ancient version of a CrossFit challenge, but it was a serious competition. A girl who could achieve a high count was praised for her agility on fitness. It was another metric, another way to publicly display your physical worth. This relentless focus on the physical had a profound impact on the Spartan idea of beauty. Unlike in Athens, where beauty might be associated with pale skin, a sign of a sheltered, indoor life and delicate features, Spartan beauty was functional. A good, strong tan was a sign of health. Toned muscles were beautiful. A body that looked capable of enduring childbirth and producing strong offspring was the ideal. Your value was written on your skin, in the curve of your muscles. But what about the inner life? Was there room for friendship, for affection, that was tied to this state-run breeding program? Of course there was. You form intense bonds with the other girls you train with. You share the same pressures, the same strange upbringing. This shared experience creates a powerful sorority. There is a debate among scholars about the nature of these bonds. Some suggest that, much like in the all-male GE, intense, romantic friendships between girls were common and accepted, a natural outcome of a segregated, unemotionally stark environment. It is a part of Spartan life that the male-centric historical sources, like Xenophon or Plutarch, barely touch upon, leaving us to piece together the emotional landscape of your girlhood from fragments, uneducated guesses. You also learn a very specific kind of patriotism. It is not an abstract love of country. It is a fierce, almost fanatical pride in Sparta's uniqueness. You are taught that you are superior to all other Greeks. The women of Athens are weak and hidden away. The women of Corinth are decadent. You are a Spartan. You are taught the famous stories of Spartan mother, the one who, when handed back her dead son on his shield, said, "This is the son I bore." The one who, when her son complained his sword was too short, told him, then add a step to it. These aren't just stories. They are instructions. They teach you that your emotional connection to your children must be secondary to their role as soldiers of the state. Your girlhood is not a gentle transition into adulthood. It is a hardening. It is a process of being imbued with the cold, unforgiving logic of Spartan survival. You are being conditioned to see your future children not as your own, but as assets. And as you approach the age of 18 or 19, the training intensifies. The public displays become more frequent. You are in your prime. You are a finished product, ready for the next, and most crucial, phase of your life, marriage, or what passes for it in Sparta. The moment comes, as it always was going to, on his 7th birthday. For you, the girl, it is a day of quiet observation. You see the younger brothers of your friends, boys you have known since they were infants, being led away. Their faces are a mixture of fear and a desperate, trained stoicism. For the boy, it is the defining rupture of his life. One day, he is a child in a family. The next, he belongs entirely to the state. He is marched with the other 7-year-olds to the barracks of the Agoge. The transition is deliberately shocking. There is no gentle phasing in period. His mother's cooking is replaced by a perpetual, knowing hunger. Her soft words are replaced by the harsh, clipped commands of his instructors. Older youths, often no more than teenagers themselves, who have been brutalized by the same system and are now eager to inflict that brutality on the next generation. It is a self-perpetuating cycle of institutionalized hazing. His long hair, the marker of childhood, is short. He is given his single, rough tunic. He is assigned to his agua, his herd, a group of boys his own age with whom he will eat, sleep, and suffer for the next decade. These boys are not his friends. Not yet. They are his competitors. They are the benchmark against which he is constantly measured. Who is the toughest? Who is the quietest? Who endures the whip without crying out? His new home is Spartan in the truest sense of the word. A bare room. A floor of beaten earth. The bed of reeds he must make himself is a lesson in self-sufficiency and a constant reminder that comfort is weakness. He learns that the world is hard, and he must be harder. His instructors. The pedo nomos, the warden of the boys, and his young assistants. Carry whips, and they use them frequently. Flogging is a pedagogical tool used to punish incompetence, disobedience, or any display of emotion. The curriculum of the agoge is designed to break him. He is taught to read and write, but only the bare minimum. The focus is on physical and psychological conditioning. He learns the parakeet, a complex war dance that simulates combat maneuvers. Its rhythms pounded into his muscle memory. He learns to sing the martial hymns of the poet Tyrts, songs that glorify death in battle and condemn cowardice as the ultimate shame. The lyrics are not art. They are propaganda, drilled into him until they become his core beliefs. One of the most insidious aspects of his new life is the institutionalized conflict. The instructors will deliberately sow discord among the boys, encouraging rivalries and fights. They want to see who emerges as the natural leader, the most aggressive wolf in the pack. It is a brutal, real-world application of survival of the fittest. He learns that to survive, he must be dominant. He must be willing to inflict pain to avoid receiving it. A weirdly specific detail of this life comes from the historian Xenophon, who was a great admirer of the Spartan system. He notes that the boys' feet were toughened by always being barefoot, but also that their diet was calculated to make them lean and weary, not bulky. He claims this was based on the belief that a lean body could spring higher and run faster. But there was another, more unsettling reason for the starvation-level rations. It was meant to make them thieves. Imagine being a hungry 9-year-old, your stomach a hollow pit. You know there are figs in a nearby orchard, or a loaf of bread in a mess hall kitchen. The state wants you to try and steal it. It is a practical exam. Can you plan a heist? Can you move silently? Can you outwit the owner? If you succeed, you get to eat, and you have proven your skill. If you are caught, the beating is savage. The shame, however, is not for stealing, but for being a clumsy, incompetent thief. He is being trained to be a predator. And where is his family in all this? They are ghosts. He might see his father during public festivals or training inspections, but the interaction is formal, that of a commander and a recruit. His father will not offer comfort. He might, in fact, strike his own son if he perceives a moment of weakness. His mother, you will hear reports of his progress. You will feel a surge of pride if he is praised for his toughness, and a pang of shame if he is punished for cowardice. You are being conditioned to see him not as your son, but as Sparta's son. Historians still debate the true extent of the brutality, or the ancient sources, many of them from rival Athens, exaggerating for effect. Was the agoge really this systematic and cruel, or was it a more typical, if harsh, ancient boarding school education? The consensus is that while some details may be embellished, the core of the system, the removal from family, the emphasis on hardship, and the goal of creating a perfectly obedient soldier, is accurate. It was a factory for producing a very specific type of human being, and the process necessarily involved destroying the child to build the warrior. For the boy, there is no escape. This is his world, from age 7 to 20, a world of hunger, pain, and the relentless pressure to conform. He is learning the first and most important lesson of Spartan life. His individual existence means nothing. Only the collective, the phalanx, the state, matters. He is being hollowed out, ready to be filled with the unshakable ethos of the Spartan warrior. As the boy, now a youth, navigates the brutal landscape of the agoge, his primary human connections are forged not with family, but with the other boys who share his cold bed of reeds. This is the crucible where the famed Spartan brotherhood is born. It is a bond forged in shared misery, mutual competition, and the absolute necessity of relying on one another to survive. He is part of a pack, and the pack is everything. His days are a monotonous rhythm of drills. He learns to handle the dory, the 8-foot spear, and the auspice, the heavy bronze shield. That is the hallmark of the hoplite. The shield, called a haplan, is more than a piece of equipment. It is a sacred object. It is large and convex, weighing up to 30 pounds. Losing it in battle is the ultimate disgrace, because it not only protects him, but also the man standing to his left. To drop your shield is to endanger the entire phalanx. This is why Spartan mothers famously told their sons to come back with your shield, or on it. It was better to be carried home dead on your shield than to return alive without it. His training is not just about individual skill. It is about collective cohesion. He spends endless hours practicing phalanx maneuvers, learning to move as one organism. 100 men, shields interlocked, spears bristling, advancing in perfect unison. It is a terrifying spectacle of discipline, and it is pounded into him through relentless repetition. A single man stepping out of line could doom them all. This is the physical manifestation of the Spartan creed. The group over the individual. His social life, such as it is, revolves around his messmates. As he gets older, he will be admitted into a SYS sit-in, a public mess hall, where he will dine with a group of 15 men for the rest of his adult life. These men will become his true family. He will eat with them, train with them, and fight alongside them. The bonds forged here are stronger than blood. He learns to trust the man on his right and protect the man on his left with his life. The food in the mess hall is famously terrible. The signature dish is a black broth, a pork-based soup made with blood, salt, and vinegar. One visiting Siberi, a man from a city known for its luxury, supposedly said that he now understood why Spartans were so willing to die. It was a joke, but it held a kernel of truth. The bland, meager diet was another to love discipline, another way to reject pleasure and embrace austerity. Within this all-male environment, his emotional world becomes tightly circumscribed. The only acceptable expressions of affection are within the context of martial brotherhood. This is where the controversial mentorship system, the relationship between the Aristos and the Aites, becomes central. His mentor, an older, accomplished warrior, is his guide to the Spartan world. He teaches him not just how to fight, but how to think like a Spartan, how to endure, how to lead, how to find glory in self-sacrifice. This relationship is his primary emotional outlet. In a world devoid of maternal affection or familial tenderness, the approval and guidance of his mentor is paramount. The love here is supposed to be for the boy's potential, his innate excellence. The mentor is praised if the boy becomes a great warrior and shamed if he becomes a coward. It is a system of accountability that binds them together. But again, the true nature of these bonds remains a source of endless academic fascination and debate. Was it purely a military and educational institution? Or was it, as many scholars now believe, an accepted unintegrated form of pederasty, a social structure that acknowledged and channeled homosexual relationships within the military framework? The Spartans themselves left no explicit manuals on the subject. Writers like Plutarch, centuries later, tried to clean it up for a Roman audience, insisting on its chastity, but other Greek sources hint at a more physical reality. The ambiguity is part of its mystique. It was a bond that was supposed to make them better fighters, the idea being that a soldier would fight to the death rather than show cowardice in front of his beloved. There is a strange little tidbit that shows the psychological conditioning at play. The boys were encouraged to engage in thefts of honor. For example, a group of boys might be tasked with stealing cheeses from the altar of Artemis or Thea. It was a ritualized game. Guardians with whips stood watch. The boys had to sneak past them and grab the cheese. If they were caught, they were flogged, sometimes severely. The point was the cheese. The point was the display of stealth, daring, and endurance of pain. It was a public performance of the skills the agoge was designed to instill. Through all this, he is being emptied of his former self. His identity is being reshaped. He is no longer the son of his father, but a son of Sparta. His loyalty is not to his mother, but to his messmates. His love is not for an individual, but for the glory of the state. He is becoming predictable, reliable, and interchangeable. He is being transformed from a boy into a component, a perfect, unthinking, unfeeling part of the great Spartan war machine. For you, the young woman, life is a cycle of training and public display. For the young man, life in the agoge is a relentless ascent through tears of hardship. As he approaches his late teens, around age 18 or 20, he must face the final, terrifying initiation that will mark his transition from boy to man. He must pass through the shadow of the cryptia. This is perhaps the most secretive and sinister institution in all of Sparta, a topic whispered about by other Greeks and one that historians still struggle to fully comprehend. The cryptia, which translates to something like the Secret Service or the hiding, was a period of trial for the most promising unruthless graduates of the agoge. It was a final exam in survival, terror, and murder. Imagine the scene. A select few of the top cadets, the ones who displayed the most cunning, self-reliance, and brutality, are chosen by the ephors. Sparta has 5 elected chief magistrates. These young men are sent out from the barracks with nothing but a knife and the barest minimum of rations. They are instructed to disappear into the countryside, to hide by day and move by night. Their purpose is twofold. First, it is a supreme test of their own skills. Can they live off the land, remain unseen, and endure total isolation? It is the ultimate special forces training exercise. But there is a second, far more chilling objective. Their primary mission is to terrorize and control the Helot population. The Helots were the state-owned serfs, the original inhabitants of Laconia and Messon, who had been conquered by the Spartans generations ago. They outnumbered the Spartan citizens by a huge margin, perhaps as much as 10 to 1. They were a perpetually subjugated people, tied to the land they farmed for their Spartan masters, and they were a constant, simmering threat. The entire Spartan way of life was built on the foundation of Helot labor, and the constant fear of a Helot uprising shaped every aspect of Spartan society. The cryptia was the state's instrument of terror, a secret police designed to keep the Helots in their place. As a member of this elite squad, the young man's task is to stalk the Helot villages. He is to listen for whispers of rebellion. He is to identify any Helot who shows signs of leadership, pride, or defiance, and then, under the cover of darkness, he is to eliminate them. He moves like a predator through the farmlands that surround Sparta. He sleeps in thickets, drinks from streams, and steals his food. He watches the Helots work in the fields during the day, noting the strong ones, the ones who don't bow their heads low enough. At night, he slips into their villages. The act of killing is swift, silent, and anonymous. It is not a battle. It is an assassination. He is learning to kill without fanfare, without witnesses, and without remorse. He is being taught that some lives are worth less than others, that the security of the state justifies any atrocity. This practice is so dark that even the ancient sources who admired Sparta, like Plato, spoke of it with a kind of awed horror. Plutarch describes it explicitly. The magistrates would, from time to time, send out the young men of the cryptia, who, scattering themselves into the country, by day hid themselves in the thickets and clefts, but in the night issued out into the highways and killed all the Helots they could light upon. It was also, in a twisted way, a form of declaration of war. A weird quirk of Spartan law was that the ephors formally declared war on the Helot population every single year. This legal fiction meant that killing a Helot was not considered murder. It was an act of war, committed by a soldier of the state. This removed any legal or moral repercussions for the young men of the cryptia. They were state-sanctioned killers, instruments of a policy of preemptive terror. The academic world is, naturally, divided on the cryptia. Was it a real, ongoing institution as Plutarch describes it, or was it a more limited, emergency measure, used only in times of great unrest? Some scholars argue it was an exaggeration, another piece of anti-Spartan propaganda designed to paint them as murderous thugs. They suggest it might have been more of a wilderness survival test, with the killing helots part added for dramatic effect. Others maintain that given the Spartans' overwhelming fear of a helot revolt, such a brutal institution is entirely plausible. It is a chilling solution to a demographic problem. If you are vastly outnumbered, you don't just rule by force. You rule by fear. For the young man who endures the cryptii and returns, he is no longer a boy. He has proven his absolute loyalty and his capacity for ruthlessness. He has stared into the darkest heart of the Spartan system and has not flinched. He is now a full citizen, a homo ius, one of the peers or equals. He has earned his place in the phalanx and the right to vote in the assembly. He has also, very likely, lost whatever remained of his youthful innocence. He is now a fully forged weapon, ready to be wielded by the state. And it is at this point, a hardened killer in his early 20s, that the state will decide it is time for him to marry, and he might be matched with you, while the young men are being forged into instruments of war. You, the Spartan woman, are being groomed for a different but equally critical role, the steward of the state's economic engine. Your brother, your cousin, the boy you watched being led away to the agoge years ago. They will spend their entire adult lives dedicated to military service. They live in barracks until age 30, and even after that, their primary obligation is to the army and their communal mess hall. They have no time and no training for business, agriculture, or finance. That responsibility falls to you. This is the great paradox of your life. In a society that is arguably the most misogynistic and militaristic in the Greek world, you wield a level of economic power and personal autonomy that would be unthinkable for your Athenian counterparts. You are not confined to the Gyneceum, the women's quarters, the city and its surrounding lands are your domain. You grow into a woman who understands accounts. You learn how to manage a eros, the plot of agricultural land assigned to a Spartan citizen. This land is the basis of his citizenship, the source of the wealth that allows him to be a full-time soldier. But he doesn't work it. The helots, the state-owned serfs, do the back-breaking labor of planting and harvesting. And you, the woman of the house, oversee it all. You direct the helots. You manage the yields. You ensure that the required portion of the produce is delivered to your husband's SYS Citian to feed him and his messmates. If you fail in this, your husband can lose his citizenship. The security of your family status rests on your shoulders. You learn to be tough and pragmatic. Managing a workforce of resentful serfs requires a firm hand. You are not a gentle lady of the manor. You are CEO, a plantation manager, and a quartermaster rolled into one. You walk the fields. You're skint and by the sun, issuing orders with the same clip. Laconic authority as a Spartan officer. This practical power gives you a confidence that startles outsiders. The philosopher Aristotle, no fan of the Spartan system, complained that the freedom and influence of Spartan women had led to the state's ruin. He claimed they were avaricious and lived lives of luxury, while the men endured hardship. There is a nugget of truth to his grumbling, with the men so frequently absent, either living in the barracks, away on campaign, or dead. Property, especially in the form of land, tended to accumulate in the hands of women through inheritance and dowries. By the classical period, it is estimated that women owned or controlled as much as 2/5 of all land in Sparta. This is a staggering figure for the ancient world. You are not just managing your husband's property. You likely have property of your own, inherited from your father. You can make contracts. You can buy and sell. You can go to court. You are a legal and economic entity in a way that other Greek women were not. And here is a quirky detail that illustrates your status. Your clothing, while an Athenian woman would be draped in layers of fabric, your attire is practical, even scandalous to outsiders. You wear the peplos, a simple, sleeveless tunic, but the Spartan version is famously open at the side, from the hip down. This earned Spartan women the nickname Fae Gnome Rides, or thigh showers. For other Greeks, this was a sign of shocking licentiousness. For you, it is just practical. It allows you to move freely, to run, to work, to get things done without being encumbered by yards of cloth. It is the uniform of an active, busy woman, not a cloistered domestic ornament. So, are you free? It is the recurring, central question, and historians are passionately divided. One school of thought champions you as a liberated proto-feminist, a powerful figure who benefited from the unique structure of your society. You have economic power, legal rights, and freedom of movement. You are educated and outspoken. When a woman from Attica supposedly said to Gorgo, the wife of King Leonidas, "You Spartan women are the only ones who can rule men," Gorgo's famous reply was, "That is because we are the only ones who give birth to men." That is the confidence, the sharp-tongued wit you embody, but the other side of the argument is darker. Is this power a choice or a necessity? You are given these responsibilities because the men are unavailable. Your freedom is a byproduct of the state's all-consuming militarism. You are not managing the estate for your own enrichment, but to ensure a soldier remains fed and equipped. Your entire existence is still framed by your reproductive function. You have the freedom to be an efficient cog in the machine, but you are still a cog. You have not escaped the system. You are its chief administrator on the home front. Your power is contingent on the very system that defines your ultimate purpose as a breeder of soldiers. As you stand on the porch of your family home, looking out over the fields worked by helots, you are a figure of contradictions. You are powerful, yet your power serves a male-dominated state. You are autonomous, yet your autonomy is in service of a rigid, collective ideology. You are the master of the house, but you are still waiting for the state to assign you a husband. You are now in your late teens or early 20s, at the peak of your physical development. Your body, honed by years of running, wrestling, and discus throwing, is considered prime state asset. The young man, having survived the Agoge and perhaps even the Cryptia, is a hardened soldier in his early 20s. The state has invested heavily in both of you. It is time for it to collect its return. It is time for marriage. But in Sparta, marriage is not a culmination of a personal relationship. You do not fall in love. You do not choose your partner. There is no courtship, no romantic walks, no whispered promises. The very idea would be considered dangerously individualistic. Your marriage is an arrangement, a carefully managed transaction orchestrated by the state, or more specifically, by the elders and the fathers of the prospective couple. It is a eugenic match. The process is cold and clinical. Your father and the young man's father, likely acting on the advice or command of a senior figure in their SYS city under one of the city's EP whores, will come to an agreement. The criteria for this match have nothing to do with compatibility, affection, or even family alliances in the typical sense. The calculation is brutally simple. Will the union of this man and this woman produce the best possible offspring? They look at the young man. Is he from strong stock? Did he excel in the Agoge? Is he a respected warrior, known for his courage and discipline? They look at you. Is your family known for producing healthy children? Are you yourself the picture of robust health, proven in the public exercises? Your height, your strength, your wide hips, all are factors in the equation. It is less like a marriage negotiation and more like the pairing of prize livestock. The goal is a genetically superior product. The state's interest in this is paramount. There was even a specific term for the crime of a bad man, takogamie. This was just a social faux pas. It was a failure of civic duty. A man who chose a wife for her wealth or beauty rather than her perceived fitness for childbearing could be publicly shamed or even fined. The famous Spartan lawgiver, Lycurgus, is credited with establishing this principle. According to the historian Plutarch, Lycurgus believed that children were not the private property of their parents, but the common property of the city. Therefore, the city had a vested interest in ensuring they were well born from the start. This leads to one of the most alien, to modern sensibilities, unsettling aspects of Spartan society. The focus was so intensely on producing the best children that the concept of marital fidelity was completely redefined. If a man was older and had a young wife, but recognized that a younger, more physically impressive man might produce a stronger child with her, it was considered not only acceptable but honorable for him to invite that younger man to impregnate his wife. The resulting child would be legally recognized as the older man's heir. and the biological father would be praised for his contribution to the state. This isn't adultery. It is state-sponsored surrogacy. It is a chilling example of the individual ego being totally sublimated to the collective good. The husband's pride, the wife's feelings, none of it mattered. What mattered was the quality of the baby. This concept of wife sharing, as it's often called, is a hotbed of scholarly debate. Was it a common, widespread practice as ancient writers like Xenophon and Plutarch suggest? Or was it a rare exception, a theoretical ideal that was seldom put into practice? Some historians argue that the ancient sources, writing for an audience fascinated by the bizarre customs of Sparta, may have exaggerated its prevalence. They point out that human nature, jealousy, possessiveness, love, doesn't just disappear. Even in a society as rigid as Sparta, the idea of a man willingly offering his wife to another, even for the good of the state, strains credulity for some. Others contend that in a society that so thoroughly indoctrinated its citizens in the creed of collectivism, such a practice is entirely plausible. It is a debate that cuts to the very heart of how much a state can truly mold the deepest human instincts. For you, the young woman, this means you are not being chosen by a man who loves you. You are being selected for your genetic potential. You are a prize mare, and the state is deciding which stallion will produce a champion foal. You may have seen the young man at festivals. You may have even mocked him in one of your choral songs if he was slow to marry. But you do not know him. There is no personal connection. The agreement is made. Your dowry, if any, is settled. The union is approved. You are now betrothed. But there will be no public ceremony, no feast, no celebration with friends and family. The beginning of your marriage will be as strange and secretive as the society that decreed it. You are about to be captured. The match has been made. The state has sanctioned your union. But there is no joyful announcement, no weaving of floral garlands, no public procession to your new home. Your wedding day, if you can even call it that, is an act of staged violence. A ritualized abduction shrouded in secrecy and darkness. The whole affair is designed to be clandestine. Your groom, a young soldier likely still under 30, is legally required to live in his military barracks. He is not supposed to be seen setting up a household or engaging in domestic life. That would be a distraction from his martial duties. So, the wedding must reflect this reality. It must look like something illicit, a stolen moment rather than a formal union. On the appointed night, you are with your female friends, perhaps in your family home or the home of a designated bridesmaid. There is a sense of anticipation, but it is mixed with a kind of sober gravity. You are preparing for a transition, but it is not the one other Greek women experience. Suddenly, the door bursts open. It is him, your state-assigned partner. He doesn't enter with a gentle nod. He stages a capture. He and perhaps a few of his close friends from his mess hall will enact a mock raid. He will seize you, and you are expected to put up a token, ritualized resistance. It is a performance, a piece of theater that harks back to a more primitive, mythical past. Like the abduction of the Sabine women, it reinforces the idea that this is not a gentle, domestic arrangement. This is a warrior taking what is his. He lifts you and carries you away into the night. It is all done with a sense of urgency and stealth. The act itself is a public secret. Everyone knows these abductions are how marriages begin, but the pretense of it being a secret raid is strictly maintained. He spirits you away, not to a new home you will share, but to a designated location, perhaps a small, darkened room in the home of your female attendant, the nymphoch or moes. This ritual is one of the most debated Spartan customs. What was the point of this elaborate charade? The ancient historian Plutarch, our main source for this, offers a few theories. He suggests it was meant to make the couple's initial encounters more passionate and vigorous, as they were full of ardor and strength, not enfeebled by satiety from living together. It was also a way to combat the potential awkwardness of two strangers being thrown together for the purpose of procreation. The ritualized violence and secrecy replaced the need for small talk. Another theory is that it was a rite of passage for the groom. It was a symbolic act that separated him from the world of boys in the Aegean, marked him as a man who now had responsibilities beyond the barracks, even if he couldn't live up to them openly. By stealing a wife, he was asserting his new status in a way that was compatible with the ongoing demands of his military life. A less charitable interpretation, and one that many modern historians lean towards, is that it was a symbolic act of domination. It established the power dynamic of the relationship from the very beginning. The man is the aggressor, the captor, the woman is the captured prize. It strips away any pretense of partnership or equality and frames the union in terms of conquest, given the Spartan obsession with strength and dominance. This interpretation is disturbingly plausible. Historians are still arguing about the specific details. Was there a real struggle, or was it entirely symbolic? How much of this was tradition versus a genuine reflection of the couple's feelings? We are reliant on the accounts of outsiders and later writers, who may have been emphasizing the most exotic aspects of Spartan life for their own literary purposes. The lived experience of the moment is lost to us, leaving us to reconstruct it from these strange, theatrical fragments. You are now in the designated room, alone with this man for the first time. The air is thick with a mixture of obligation and nervous energy. He is a soldier, trained for violence and obedience. You are an athlete, trained for endurance and childbirth. You are two highly specialized components of the Spartan state, brought together in a darkened room to perform your primary civic duty. There is no expectation of tenderness, only function. This is not the beginning of a shared life. It is the beginning of a series of clandestine, state-sanctioned encounters, all aimed at a single, vital outcome, the conception of a new Spartan. But before that can happen, you must undergo one final, bizarre transformation. You must be made to look less like a woman and more like a boy. You are now in the darkened room, the sounds of your abduction fading into the night. Your heart is likely pounding, not from fear in the traditional sense. You are a Spartan, after all, but from the sheer, programmatic strangeness of it all. You are not alone. With you is your nymphocomoess, the female attendant who serves as a combination of bridesmaid, chaperone, and ritual facilitator. It is her job to prepare you for the arrival of your new husband. This preparation is not about making you beautiful in the way an Athenian bride would be adored. There are no intricate braids, no perfumes, no fine jewelry. The process is one of stripping away, of masculinization. It is a ritual designed to bridge the chasm between your husband's all-male world and this new, secret domestic sphere. First, your hair, your long hair, which you may have worn with pride as a sign of your health and status, is shaved off. Your head is clipped short, almost like a boy's. The shearing of hair is a powerful symbol in many cultures, often signifying mourning, punishment, or a new beginning. Here, it seems to be a deliberate attempt to erase a key marker of your femininity. It makes you less other to a man who has spent his entire life, since the age of 7, in a world almost entirely devoid of women. Next, your clothes. You do not put on a delicate nightgown. Instead, you are dressed in a man's cloak and sandals. You are being remade, visually, into something familiar to your husband, something that fits more easily into his psychological landscape. You are becoming, in appearance, one of the boys from the barracks. You are then left alone in the room, on a simple pallet on the floor, in total darkness. The scene is dark, austere, and deeply unsettling. You are a bride, but you look like a recruit. You are waiting for your husband, but you have been stripped of the very things that define you as a woman. Why this bizarre ritual? Plutarch, our guide through this strange world, suggests it was a deliberate strategy by the log Iver Lycurgus to ease the young groom into heterosexual relations. The man, having grown up in the intensely homoerotic environment of the agoge, might find the transition to a female partner jarring. By making the bride look like a boy, the ritual lessened the shock of the new. It was a psychological trick, a way to make the unfamiliar feel familiar. It is a deeply pragmatic, if deeply weird, solution to a problem of the state's own making. This theory, of course, throws fuel on the fire of the debate about the nature of relationships in the agoge. If such an elaborate ritual was necessary, It suggests that the bonds between men were indeed the primary, emotional and perhaps physical reality for Spartan youth, and that marriage was a secondary, functional requirement that needed this strange theatrical bridge. Another interpretation is that this ritual was a form of symbolic assimilation. By shaving your head and dressing you in men's clothes, the ritual symbolically inducts you into your husband's world. You are leaving the world of unmarried girls and entering the sphere of a Spartan warrior's life. Albeit in this strange, clandestine way, you are shedding your old identity to take on a new one that is intrinsically linked to his. And here is a small, debated detail that adds another layer of strangeness. Some interpretations of the sources suggest that the initial encounter between the husband and the masculinized bride was meant to happen in darkness and silence, and that the husband was supposed to leave before dawn, without having properly seen his wife's face. The idea was that this secrecy and unfamiliarity would prolong the couple's desire and prevent them from growing bored of each other. It is a kind of forced mystique, designed to keep the procreative impulse strong. So you wait in the dark, a shorn-headed figure in a man's cloak. The door creaks open. It is your husband, slipping away from his barracks, risking a flogging if he is caught. He is not here for a night of romance. He is here to perform a duty. He finds you in the dark. The encounter is likely swift, silent, and functional. He is conditioned for efficiency, not tenderness. You are conditioned for endurance, not intimacy. Before the first light of dawn, he is gone. He slips back to the barracks to sleep alongside the other men, pretending he has been there all night. He will not speak of where he has been. You are left alone again in the darkened room. This is your wedding night. It was not a celebration of a new union, but a covert operation. It was a transaction, sealed in darkness, marked by the shearing of your hair and the donning of a disguise. And this strange pattern of secret, nocturnal visits is the shape your marriage will take for years to come. The morning after your wedding is not one of shared breakfasts or quiet conversation. It is a return to the status quo. You wake up, perhaps in the home of your attendant, and he wakes up in the barracks. You will not see each other in the daylight. You will not walk together in the city. You are married, but your marriage exists only in the shadows. This is the reality for a Spartan couple until the husband reaches the age of 30. For the first several years of your union, he is a soldier first, a husband second. His life remains centered on the Agoge E if he is still a senior cadet, or his SYS Citian if he is a full citizen. His days are filled with military drills, public duties, and communal meals with his 15 messmates. His royalty, his time, and his energy belong to them and to the state. The idea of him openly living with a wife is seen as a sign of softness, a decadent distraction from his true purpose. So your marriage unfolds as a series of secret rendezvous. He must sneak away from the barracks at night. This is a risky endeavor. If he is caught by a patrol or one of his superiors, he could be punished, not for being married, but for the incompetence of being discovered. The act of visiting you is another test of his stealth and cunning, the same skills he was taught to use when stealing food as a boy. You, in the meantime, live a life of seeming independence. You likely return to your family as home, or perhaps you are given a new household to manage, one that is officially his but in reality is entirely yours. You are the mistress of the estate, in charge of the helots, the finances, the day-to-day running of a complex economic unit. You are a CEO of a household that is missing its chairman. The separation is so complete that the ancient writers marveled at it. Xenophon, the Athenian admirer of Sparta, wrote that some men would become fathers before they had ever seen their wives in the daylight. It is a statement that might be an exaggeration, but it captures the essence of this bizarre arrangement. Your relationship is built on fleeting, nocturnal encounters. What does this do to the concept of a relationship? Intimacy, as we understand it, emotional closeness built on shared experience and communication, is impossible. There is no time for it, and the culture actively discourages it. Your conversations, if you have them, are likely brief and functional. The purpose of his visit is singular and clear: procreation. This structure had a very specific, pragmatic goal. According to the Spartans themselves, The lawgiver like Curtis, they believe, designed it this way to ensure that when couples did meet, they were full of generative vigor. The enforced separation was meant to keep their physical desire for each other high, by making access to each other difficult and drear. The state hoped to maximize the chances of conception during each visit. It was a form of controlled breeding, managing the libido of its citizens for optimal reproductive outcomes. But historians today debate the psychological impact of such a system. Does this enforced separation really foster desire? Or does it create a profound sense of alienation? For the man, his primary emotional bonds remain with his comrades in the barracks. They are his family. You are a duty, a secret he keeps. For you, your primary connections are with your female relatives and friends. And with the demands of managing your estate, he is a ghost who visits in the night. It is a system that seems designed to prevent the formation of a strong, private family unit. And that is likely the point. The state saw the traditional family, with its intense loyalties and private emotions, as a potential rival to its own authority. If a man loved his wife and children too much, he might hesitate to sacrifice himself in battle. He might put their welfare above the welfare of the state, by keeping the husband and wife separate, by making their marriage a semi-illicit affair. Sparta ensured that the man's primary allegiance would always be to the phalanx. Your nuclear family is intentionally weakened to strengthen the family of the state. This leads to a fascinating point of academic contention. Did Spartans even have a word for family in the way we think of it? The Greek word oikos usually refers to the household, the family unit, and its property, and while Spartans had households, the emotional core of that unit was deliberately hollowed out. The emotional bonds were redirected, the man's to his mess hall, the woman's to her reproductive duty and economic stewardship. The state systematically dismantled the private family to ensure the supremacy of the public, military collective. So you live this strange double life. By day, a powerful, independent manager of a large estate. By night, you wait for the possibility of a secret visit from a man who is legally your husband but in practice is a stranger. You are married, but you are also, in a very real sense, alone. The moon is the only reliable witness to your marriage. Your life falls into a rhythm dictated by darkness and stealth. On any given night, you don't know for sure if he will come. His visits are not scheduled. They depend on his ability to slip away from the ever-watchful eyes of his superiors in the intense, insular world of the barracks. When he does come, it is like a scene from a spy thriller. He moves through the unlit streets of Sparta, not as a husband coming home, but as an infiltrator. He has to be silent, quick, and invisible. The skills honed in the agoge and the cryptii are now used for domestic purposes. He is not just visiting his wife. He is executing a mission. You, for your part, learn to wait. You maintain the household. You manage the helots. You live your public life as a capable Spartan woman. But at the back of your mind, there is always a nocturnal possibility. The house must be ready. A path must be clear. You might leave a shutter unlatched, a signal arranged. The entire affair has the air of an illicit romance. Yet it is a state-mandated duty. It is a paradox you inhabit every day. The encounter itself is brief. He arrives. You meet in the darkness. And the purpose of the meeting is fulfilled with the grim efficiency that defines all aspects of Spartan life. There is little time for the luxury of conversation, for the sharing of the day's events, for the building of a shared emotional world. He is a soldier on leave, and his leave is measured in minutes, not hours. Think about the psychological toll. He lives in a world of rigid discipline, male camaraderie, and constant physical exertion. His reality is the smell of sweat and leather, the clang of weapons, the rough jokes of his messmates. Your world is one of agriculture, accounts, and the management of a large and potentially rebellious workforce. You are living into completely different universes. When you meet in the dark, you are two strangers from different planets, united only by a biological imperative and a decree from the state. This strangeness is perfectly captured in a story told by Plutarch. He writes of a Spartan man who, after several years of this secret marriage, was asked by a friend about his wife. The man, in all seriousness, replied, "She is tall, That was all he knew for sure. He had only ever been with her in the dark. It is a detail that feels almost like a punchline, a piece of anti-Spartan satire. And it might be, but it illustrates the profound alienation at the heart of the Spartan marital system. The secrecy also served to heighten the stakes of fatherhood. When you eventually become pregnant, it is a moment of quiet, personal triumph, but also a new kind of public pressure. It is the visible proof that the secret missions have been successful. The child, however, is not really yours in the way another Greek couple might see it. From the moment of conception, the child is a prospective asset of the state. Historians are fascinated by the emotional landscape this system created. Did love, in the romantic sense, ever have a chance to bloom? It seems unlikely in these early years. Respect, perhaps. A shared sense of duty, certainly. But the tender, private emotions that we associate with a loving partnership would have been seen as a liability. The state did not want its soldiers softened by domestic bliss. It wanted them hard, focused, and ready to die. There is a debate about whether this system was universally applied. Was it only for the elite homo ioi, the full Spartan citizens, or did the lower classes of Spartans, the perio, hikeo, the dwellers around who were free but not citizens, have more conventional family lives? The historical record is focused on the citizen class, the warriors, so we have a skewed picture. It is plausible that the further you were from the heart of the military machine, the more normal your family life might have been. It is another one of those areas where the evidence is thin, and we are left to speculate. For you, the wife of a Spartan soldier, the relationship is defined by his absence. He is a ghost in your life, a fleeting presence in the night. The paradox is that his absence is what gives you your power and autonomy during the day. If he were home, you would likely have far less control over the household and estate. His life in the barracks is what makes your life as a quasi-independent landowner possible. Before the sun rises, he is gone. He melts back into the pre-dawn shadows, returning to his bunk, to the familiar routines of a soldier's life. He must be back in place before the morning drills begin. Before anyone notices he was ever away, you are left alone in the house, the mistress of your domain, with only the brief, shadowy memory of his visit. Your husband is a stranger, and tomorrow you will do it all again, while you are the solitary queen of your household. He, your husband, is living a life that is anything but solitary. His world is a forced, intense, and perpetual state of community. He is not an individual. He is a member of a 15-man unit, and this unit, the SYS Citian, is his entire world. It is his family, his dining club, his support system, and the source of his social standing. Upon reaching adulthood and completing the agoge, every Spartan citizen was required to be admitted to one of these dining messes. Gaining entry was a crucial step. It was a formal election, where the existing members would vote on the candidate. The method was quaintly specific. Each member would take a piece of bread, and if they approved of the candidate, they would drop it into a bowl as is. If they disapproved, they would squeeze it flat first. According to Plutarch, even one flattened piece of bread was enough to deny him entry. A rejection was a social catastrophe, effectively making a man an outcast. It was another layer of intense peer review in a society obsessed with conformity and quality control. Once admitted, his life was anchored to this group. The most important part of his day was the evening meal, which he was legally required to attend. To miss a meal without a valid excuse, like being on a hunt or performing a sacrifice, was a serious offense, met with fines and disgrace. This was not just dinner. This was the central ritual of Spartan civic life, reinforcing the bonds of brotherhood every single day. The food, as we know, was legendary for being awful. The main course was the infamous black broth melis, c. omos. The recipe is lost to time, but it was some concoction of pork, salt, vinegar, and pig's blood. Its purpose was not pleasure, but sustenance and discipline. It was a daily reminder of the Spartan commitment to austerity. They ate to live. They did not live to eat. Each man was required to contribute a set amount of barley, wine, cheese, and figs from his own kale arrows. The estate You are managing every month. A failure to make this contribution would result in the loss of his citizenship. Your work at home was directly tied to his ability to sit at this table. This is his family dinner. He doesn't come home to eat with you and the children you may eventually have. He eats with these 14 other men. Here, they talk, they joke, they discuss politics and war. The conversation was expected to be educational and virtuous. Older members would mentor the younger ones, asking them questions, testing their wit, and correcting their morals. It was a continuation of the Ergo-GE's educational mission, a lifelong seminar in being a proper Spartan. And the humor was famously dry and biting. The laconic wit, they engaged in a form of verbal sparring, a kind of roast where no one was safe from mockery. But it was all meant to be taken in good spirits, to toughen the skin against insult. It was another form of training. This is where the man's emotional life is centered, the bonds forged with his messmates, men he has known since the Ergo-GE, are the deepest and most meaningful of his life. He has bled with them in training. He will stand with them in the phalanx, and he shares his daily bread with them. Compared to this intense, all-encompassing brotherhood, his relationship with you, his wife, is fleeting and peripheral. He is more married to his messmates than he is to you. This systematic replacement of the nuclear family with the military unit is a subject of endless fascination for historians and sociologists. Was it a sign of a society that had perfected civic virtue, creating men who were truly selfless and dedicated to the common good? Or was it a sign of a deeply dysfunctional society, one that had to artificially create bonds of loyalty because it had destroyed the natural ones? The ancient sources that praise Sparta, like Xenophon, saw it as the former. They believed it was the key to Sparta's military success. Men fought not for an abstract concept of the state, but for the men standing next to them, their brothers from the SYS Scythian. A Quirkian debated detail about the SYS Scythian involves the drinking of wine. The Greeks almost always mixed their wine with water. To drink it unmixed au gratin was considered barbaric. The Spartans, however, had a reputation for being heavy drinkers. Some sources suggest that in the mess halls, the drinking was more liberal, a way to relax the rigid discipline of the day. But even this was supposedly controlled. An elder might command a group of helots to be brought in and forced to drink unmixed wine until they were embarrassingly drunk. They would then be paraded before the young men as a living lesson on the dangers of intoxication. This, the elder would say, is what happens when a man loses control. It was education by negative example. So while you are at home, making the decisions that keep the entire enterprise afloat, he is in the mess hall, reaffirming his bonds with his real family. He is a brother, a son, and a father to the men around him. You are the manager of his supply chain. This is the cold, hard structure of your two worlds. You are partners in a state-sanctioned enterprise, but you are not partners in life. His life is here, in the company of men. Your home is a place of business, a hub of agricultural production, but it is not a family home in the way you might imagine. It is a house without a husband, a domain without a resident master. He is a visitor, a ghost who belongs to the barracks and the mess hall. You are the permanent fixture, the pillar that holds the roof up. Your days are a whirlwind of responsibility. You rise with the sun, not to the quiet intimacy of a shared life, but to the demanding reality of managing your kale arrows. You step out into the crisp Laconian air, and your first order of business is to direct the helots. These are not happy, loyal farmhands. They are a conquered people, bound to the land and forced to turn over a huge portion of what they produce to you. Their Spartan overlord. Your relationship with them is one of constant tension, a careful balance of authority and vigilance. You must be firm, you must be watchful, and you must never show weakness. You are, in essence, running a small corporation. You track inventory. How much barley has been harvested? How much wine has been pressed? How many cheeses are aging? You have to calculate the monthly contribution your husband does to his SYS Scythian. This is non-negotiable. A failure to deliver the goods means he loses his seat at the table, and with it, his status as a full citizen. His honor and his political existence are dependent on your managerial skills. This gives you a unique form of power, but it is a power born of necessity. The state has made the men into full-time soldiers, and in doing so, has outsourced all other aspects of civilized life to you. You are not just a housewife. You are an economist, an administrator, and a warden. What about love and affection? The system seems designed to starve it out of existence. Your husband is more of a biological partner than an emotional one. He is the state-appointed inseminator. His purpose in your life is functional, not personal. When he visits, it is to fulfill a duty. When you conceive, you are both fulfilling your primary directive. This leads to one of the more chillingly pragmatic customs that ancient writers like Plutarch and Xenophon describe, the practice of wife sharing, or more accurately, husband-approved surrogacy. Let us say your husband is getting older, or perhaps he was injured in battle, or maybe you have been married for some time and have yet to produce a child. The state and your husband might decide that a different man, younger, stronger, a more perfect specimen, would have a better chance of siring a healthy child with you. In such a case, your husband might approach this other man and arrange for him to sleep with you. This was not considered adultery. It was a patriotic act. The goal was not personal pleasure, but the production of a superior asset for Sparta. The resulting child would be legally unsocially recognized as your husband's heir. The biological father would receive honor for his service, and your husband would be praised for putting the needs of the state above his own personal pride or jealousy. It is a concept so alien to modern sensibilities that it is hard to wrap your head around. It reduces you, the woman, to a vessel, a field to be planted with the best possible seed. Your own feelings on the matter are irrelevant. Your husband's feelings are secondary to his civic duty. It is the ultimate expression of collectivist thinking, where the individual is completely subsumed by the group. Of course, historians are deeply divided on how common this really was. Was this an everyday reality, or an extreme, theoretical example of Spartan logic that writers love to trot out to shock their non-Spartan readers? Some scholars argue it was likely very rare, a solution for dire situations, like a man being on the verge of dying without an heir. Others believe that in a society so obsessed with eugenics and so conditioned to suppress individualism, it is entirely plausible that it was a recognized and accepted social custom. It remains one of the most debated and disturbing what-ifs of the Spartan world. Imagine the quiet conversations, the cold, pragmatic agreements, your husband, a man you barely know, telling you that another man, a man you may not know at all, will be visiting you tonight for the good of Sparta. There is no room for your voice in this decision. You are the instrument through which the state's will is enacted. Your home, then, is a paradox. You are its undisputed ruler. You hold the power of the purse, the authority over the staff, but you are also profoundly alone, a key player in a system that has stripped away the personal and emotional core of marriage and family, replacing it with the cold, hard logic of a breeding program. You have a house, but you do not have a home. You have a husband, but you do not have a partner. The days and months following your marriage are marked by a new and heavy weight, the pressure to conceive. This is not a private hope, a personal desire for a child. It is a public expectation, a civic duty. You are now required to fulfill every aspect of your life, your physical training, your state's ancient merit. The secret nocturnal visits from your husband has been leading to this single, biological objective. You feel the eyes of the community on you. The older women, the mothers of proven soldiers, watch you with a knowing, appraising gaze. Your friends, the girls you trained with, are in the same position, and a quiet competition simmers between you. Who will be the first to quicken with child? Who will be the first to prove her worth to the state? In Sparta, barrenness is not a personal tragedy. It is a public failure. A woman's value is inextricably linked to her fertility. You have been raised to be a mother of man, and if you cannot fulfill that role, you are, in the eyes of the state, defective. The shame is immense. This pressure is woven into the fabric of your society. There are religious festivals where fertility is celebrated, and you, as a young married woman, are expected to participate. Your prayers are not for happiness or love, but for a successful pregnancy. The gods themselves are enlisted in this state-run eugenics program. Let us say a few months pass, and then a year, and you still have not conceived. The anxiety begins to mount. Your husband's visits might become more frequent, more urgent. The entire enterprise, once a secret, now feels like a conspicuous failure. The whispers start. Is there something wrong with you? Is he at fault? In a society that worships physical perfection, the inability to perform the most basic biological function is a mark of profound imperfection. This is where the cold logic of Spartan society intersects with personal despair. If a marriage failed to produce children after a reasonable amount of time, it could be, and often was, dissolved. There was no stigma of divorce in the modern sense. It was a practical matter. The partnership was not fulfilling its function, so it was terminated. Your husband would be free to marry another, more fertile woman, and you would be left in a state of limbo, a woman who had failed in her primary purpose. Your value in the marriage market plummeted. This is what makes the practice of borrowing a woo or a sire so grimly pragmatic. Before dissolving a marriage, a couple might resort to bringing in a third party. If the fault was presumed to be the husband's, he might lend you to a more virile man. If the fault was presumed to be yours, it is conceivable, though less discussed in the sources, that he might have a child with another woman. The Hilid perhaps, though the legal status of such a child would be highly ambiguous. The point was to get a child, by any means necessary. Historians debate the emotional reality of this pressure. Did women live in constant fear? Did they resort to folk remedies or secret fertility rituals? The historical record, written by men focused on military and political matters, is largely silent on the inner lives of women, but we can infer the stress from the structure of the society itself. When your entire social standing, your very identity, is tied to your womb, the monthly cycle becomes a recurring trial. Each month, without a pregnancy, is another mark against you. There is a strange quirk in Spartan funerary customs that highlights the importance of childbirth. According to Pliers, only two types of people were allowed to have their names inscribed on their tombstones: men who died in battle and women who died in childbirth. This is a stunning equivalency. The state recognized that giving birth was, for a woman, her battlefield. It was her moment of supreme service and sacrifice. For Sparta, dying while trying to produce a new soldier was an act of heroism on par with dying in the phalanx. This honor, however, is a double-edged sword. It elevates the status of motherhood, but it also reinforces the idea that your life is only valuable in the context of this dangerous, singular act. Your personal accomplishments, your skill in managing the estate, your intelligence, all of it is secondary to your biological function. So you wait, you track the moon, you endure the sacred visits, and you hope that your body, so carefully trained and prepared, will do what it is supposed to do. You hope to feel the first stirrings of a new life, a life that will not truly be your own, but will belong, from its very first heartbeat, to the state. The pressure is immense. A silent, heavy cloak you wear every single day. The months turn into a year, maybe more. The initial anxiety has hardened into a quiet dread. You have not conceived. In the stark, unforgiving world of Sparta, you are now facing the grim reality of being labeled barren. This isn't just a personal sorrow. It is a public verdict on your worth. You have failed to fulfill your one essential function. You are, in the eyes of the state, a faulty piece of equipment. The social consequences are immediate and brutal. You might notice a change in how you are treated at public festivals. The other women, the ones who are pregnant or have already borne sons, carry themselves with a pride you cannot share. There might be a subtle shift in their tone, a mixture of pity and contempt. You are an object of gossip. Your failure a topic of conversation in the mess halls and the gymnasiums. Your husband, too, faces pressure. His messmates might mock him. His inability to produce an heir reflects poorly on his virility and his standing. The failure of your union is a shared shame, but the blame, more often than not, falls upon you. The assumption is that the field is fallow, not that the seed is weak. This is the point where the Spartan state's pragmatism shows its cruelest face. A childless marriage has no purpose. It is a drain on resources, an unproductive unit. The concept of two people staying together for companionship or love, in the absence of children, is utterly alien. Therefore, the union must be dissolved. The process of ending the marriage is as unsentimental as its beginning. There is no complex legal battle. It is a simple, practical annulment. Your husband can repudiate you, effectively ending the marriage with a public declaration, or the decision might be made by the elders, who see the childless match as a waste of good breeding stock. You might be sent back to your father's home. Your dowry returned. The contract is void. For your ex-husband, the path is clear. He is now free, and, in fact, obligated to find a new wife, one who can give him the heir the state demands. He will be paired with another young, healthy woman, and the cycle of secret nocturnal visits will begin anew. For you, the future is bleak. You are now damaged goods. Your failure is a matter of public record. Remarrying will be difficult. Who would want a woman proven to be barren? You might be relegated to a life of spinsterhood, living in the household of your father or a brother, a constant, living reminder of reproductive failure. Your status as a powerful estate manager might be stripped away. As the kale arrows belongs to your husband's life, you become a dependent, a burden. This societal obsession with fertility is captured in a story about King Anaxandrid as II. His wife was beloved, but she bore him no children. The Epihors, the highest magistrates of Sparta, did not tell him to divorce her. Instead, they came to him with a chillingly practical demand. They insisted he take a second wife simultaneously in order to produce an heir for the kingdom. They told him, "The city will not suffer your house to be extinguished." In a surprising twist, the first wife then became pregnant, as did the second. This led to the birth of two future kings, Clemens and Leonidas of 300 fame, from two different mothers, creating a succession crisis down the line. This story, whether entirely true or not, is a fascinating point of debate for historians. It suggests that while divorce was the common solution for childlessness, in very high-stakes situations, even bigamy was on the table. It highlights the state's absolute power to intervene in the most intimate aspects of life. The survival of a royal line, or the production of any heir, trumped all conventional marital norms. It also shows a rare instance where a woman's position was protected, but only because of her husband's extreme power and affection, a luxury you, as an ordinary Spartan woman, would not have. The fear of this fate, repudiation and a life of shame, is the dark shadow that hangs over every Spartan marriage. It makes the union not a partnership, but a probationary period. You are on trial. You must perform, or you will be discarded. So you live with this constant, gnawing fear. You see other women's bellies swell with pregnancy, and you feel a pang of envy and despair. You hear the cry of a newborn from a neighbor's house, and it sounds like a judgment. Your life, which was once so full of physical pride and public purpose, has shrunk to the single, desperate hope in a society that worships strength. You have been branded with the ultimate weakness. Let us imagine a different scenario. You and your husband have been trying for a child without success, but he is a man of some standing, and perhaps he is fond of you, or at least respects your managerial skills. Divorce is a drastic step. Before that, there is another, even stranger option on the table, one that epitomizes the cold, collectivist logic of Sparta. He can lend you to another man. This isn't a decision made in anger or desperation. It is a calculated, rational choice, discussed with the same seriousness as a crop rotation strategy. Your husband, recognizing his own potential deficiency, or simply acknowledging that another man possesses superior physical attributes, will identify a suitable candidate. This man won't be a random stranger. He will be a fellow Spartan, likely younger, stronger, and with a reputation for valor and health. He is a prize bull, chosen to sire a superior calf. Your husband will approach this man. The conversation is not one of shame or dishonor. In fact, it is framed as a patriotic request. "My friend," he might say, "you are a fine example of a Spartan. The state needs more men like you. My wife is a strong woman. Do your duty to Sparta, Give me a child to raise as my own. For the man being asked to refuse would be un-Spartan. It would be seen as selfish, putting his own personal feelings or potential awkwardness above the needs of the community. To agree is to perform a civic service. He is not stealing another man's wife. He is helping a fellow citizen fulfill his reproductive obligation. And what about you in this equation? You are the vessel. Your consent is not part of the discussion. Your body is a resource to be deployed in the most efficient way possible for the good of the state. One night, your husband might inform you that it will not be him slipping into your room, but another man. A man you may have seen at festivals, but do not know. You are expected to receive him, to perform your duty without question or complaint. Your womb has been nationalized. This practice, which the historian Xenophon discusses with admiration, is a radical redefinition of marriage, fidelity, and parenthood. It separates the legal and social role of a father from the biological one. The child born from this union is, in the eyes of the law and society, the legitimate heir of your husband. He will raise the child, give it his name, and his scale arrows will pass to it. The biological father has no claim, nor does he seek one. His contribution was a patriotic deposit into the state's genetic bank account. This is a minefield for historical interpretation. The very idea is so shocking that many scholars question its prevalence. Was this a common, accepted custom, as Xenophon's favorable account suggests? Or was it a theoretical ideal of pure Spartan logic that was rarely, if ever, put into practice? It is possible that the truth lies somewhere in between. It may have been an option for the elite, a way to solve thorny succession issues, but not a widespread practice among ordinary citizens. The sheer weight of human emotion, jealousy, love, possessiveness, would surely have made such a practice incredibly difficult to sustain on a large scale. The debate rages on. Did the Spartans truly manage to engineer human nature to this extraordinary degree? Consider the sheer strangeness of the encounter. A man you do not know, sanctioned by the man you are married to, visits you in the dark with the sole purpose of impregnation. The act is stripped of all personal context, becoming a purely clinical, biological transaction. It is the ultimate objectification of everyone involved. You are a womb. He is a seed bearer. Your husband is a facilitator. This system also works in reverse, though it is discussed slightly differently in the sources. A man who had already fulfilled his duty and produced enough heirs might be praised for lending his wife to a friend who was struggling to have children, or, as Plutarch describes, an older man with a young wife might not want to see her lie idle, so he would fill his house with a worthy young man to produce a child that he could then adopt. A weird, almost unbelievable anecdote that illustrates this mindset is the story of King Ariston. He desperately wanted a child, but his wife was barren. He fell for the wife of his best friend, a man named Aegetus, who was said to be the most beautiful woman in Sparta. Ariston tricked his friend into a sworn oath, where each man had to give the other whatever he desired. Aegetus, thinking of horses or slaves, agreed. Ariston then demanded Aegetus' wife, bound by his oath. Aegetus had to comply. Ariston divorced his own wife and married his friends. This is an extreme example, driven by a king's desire, but it operates on the same underlying principle. Women are transferable assets in the state's great reproductive enterprise, so you might find yourself at the center of this bizarre, triangulated relationship. It is a testament to a society that has taken the idea of it takes a village to raise a child to its most chilling and literal conclusion. It also takes a village, apparently, to conceive one. A child is finally on the way. Whether conceived with your husband or a state-sanctioned surrogate, the pregnancy is a public success. You have fulfilled your primary function. For the first time in your marriage, you and your husband are a successful unit. But the concept of fatherhood in Sparta is as strange and diluted as its concept of marriage. The man you call your husband may or may not be the biological father of your child. As we have seen, it might be a younger, stronger warrior who is called in to do his patriotic duty. But in the eyes of Spartan law and society, the child belongs to your husband. He is the legal father. the paterfamilias, and the child will be his heir. This immediately creates a separation between biological reality and social identity. But even the legal father's role is profoundly limited. He is not a dad in the modern sense. He will not be there for the birth. He will not be there to soothe the crying infant in the middle of the night. He will not be a daily presence in the child's life. He still lives in the barracks. His life revolving around the SYS city. His connection to the child is, bis, abstract. The lawgiver Lycurgus, according to Plutarch, institutionalized this distance. He believed that children were not the property of their fathers, but the common property of the state. The father was merely a temporary guardian, a steward who was responsible for producing the asset and handing it over. This ideology was designed to sever the powerful, primal bond between a parent and a child, a bond that the state saw as a threat to its own total claim on the individual. So, who is the child's father? Is it the man whose genes it carries? Is it the man who is legally responsible for it? Or is it, in a much more real sense, the state itself? The answer, in Sparta, is unequivocally the latter. This is reflected in the way boys were raised. From the age of 7, a boy was removed from his household and raised by the state in the agoge. His instructors, his mentors, and the elders of the city became his father figures. They were the ones who disciplined him, educated him, and shaped his values. His legal father became a distant figure, a man he might see at festivals, who might praise his progress in training, but who had no direct role in his upbringing. The state had usurped the paternal role entirely. This created a very different kind of social fabric. In a city like Athens, a man's identity was tied to his father. He was Pericles, son of Xanthippus. His lineage was his identity. In Sparta, a man's identity was tied to his membership in the collective. He was a Spartan. His individual parentage was secondary. This system has fascinated and horrified political philosophers for centuries. Plato, in his Republic, proposed a similar, though even more radical, system. He suggested an ideal state where children would be raised in communal nurseries, their parentage kept secret from both the parents and the children themselves. This, he argued, would eliminate jealousy and nepotism, and ensure that every citizen saw every other citizen as a brother or sister. It is a chillingly logical extension of the Spartan model, and this is a point of major academic debate. Did the Spartans truly succeed in erasing the concept of paternity, or did fathers still feel a powerful connection to their sons, even from a distance? Did they follow their progress in the agoge with pride? Did they pull strings to get them into a good SYS city? The official ideology said one thing, but human nature may have said another. The sources give us glimpses of fathers taking pride in their sons' bravery, suggesting that the natural bond was not entirely extinguished, merely suppressed and redirected. A strange little detail that complicates the idea of fatherhood is the role of the aristes, the adult mentor to an adolescent boy in the agoge. This man, in many ways, acted as a more direct father figure than the boy's actual father. He was responsible for the boy's moral and military education. He was praised for the boy's successes and blamed for his failures. This created a parallel system of fatherhood based on mentorship and, often, romantic attachment that existed alongside the biological and legal lines of parentage. A boy might have a biological father, a legal father if they were different, and an educational father in his mentor. It is a complex web of relationships that shows just how far Sparta had diverged from the traditional family structure. So as you hold your newborn child, you know that the man who is its legal father is a visitor in its life. You, the mother, will be the primary caregiver for the first few years, but you are also just a custodian. You are raising this child not for yourself or for your husband, but for Sparta, and if it is a boy, you know that on his 7th birthday, the state will come to claim its property, and the whisper-thin connection he has to his father will be severed almost completely, while the concepts of heterosexual love and marriage are being twisted into a cold, functional, state-run breeding program. Another form of love, or something that looks like it, is not only tolerated, but institutionalized. This is the complex, interruption, and central relationship between an adult male warrior. The lover and an adolescent boy. The beloved. To understand Spartan society, you have to try to understand this. This was not a hidden or shameful practice. It was a core component of the agoge and the Spartan social structure. As a boy moved into his teenage years, he would be formally taken under the wing of an older, established warrior, often a man in his 20s. This man became his mentor, his role model, and his constant companion. The official purpose of this relationship was educational. The Aristes was responsible for shaping the boy's character, for teaching him the Spartan virtues of courage, endurance, and obedience. He was a personal drill instructor for the soul. The bond was taken incredibly seriously. The mentor was held publicly accountable for the boy's development. If the boy grew into a brave and honorable warrior, his mentor received public praise and honor. If the boy turned out to be a coward or a disgrace, the shame fell squarely on the shoulders of his mentor. This created a powerful incentive for the older man to invest heavily in the boy's success. The relationship was framed in the language of love, a specific kind of martial, honorable love. The ideal was a partnership that would translate directly to the battlefield. The theory was that soldiers would fight more fiercely, more desperately, to protect and impress their beloved deaths. A man would rather die than show cowardice in front of the boy he was mentoring. It was a way of weaponizing affection, of turning personal bonds into a tool for military cohesion. This all sounds very noble and high-minded, but we have to ask the question that hangs over all discussions of this topic. Was it physical? Was this a socially sanctioned system of pederasty? The ancient sources themselves are contradictory, which is why historians are still fighting about it. Writers like Xenophon and Plutarch, who were writing centuries later, and often with a philosophical or moral agenda, tried to present it as a purely chaste and spiritual mentorship. Plutarch insists that any physical relationship was considered shameful and that the love was for the boy's soul and character, not his body. He tells stories of mentors who would not even speak to their boys in private to avoid any hint of impropriety. But other sources, including poets and writers from rival city-states like Athens, paint a very different picture. They often portray the Spartans as no different from other Greeks, for whom pederastic relationships were common. If complex, part of aristocratic life, the context of the agoge, an all-male, hypermasculine, barracks environment where boys were isolated from female contact for over a decade, makes the idea of these relationships being purely platonic seem, to many modern historians, somewhat naive. The truth is probably messy and varied. The relationship likely existed on a spectrum. Some mentorships may have been entirely chaste, focused purely on education. Others almost certainly involved a physical dimension. The state, for its part, seems to have been officially agnostic, as long as the relationship served its primary purpose, creating better soldiers. The rules were likely focused on preventing abuse or distraction. For example, the relationship was not supposed to be about pleasure or effeminacy. It was supposed to be about a transfer of masculine virtue. Any relationship that made the boy soft or distracted him from his duties would have been condemned. One strange detail that highlights the official importance of this bond involves gift giving. In most of Greece, an older lover giving gifts to a younger boy could be seen as a form of prostitution. But in Sparta, it was the other way around. It was considered shameful for a boy not to find a mentor, and his friends would supposedly give him gifts when he finally secured a worthy one. The gift was not for the boy, but for the mentor, as a sign of respect for taking on the responsibility. This inversion shows how Sparta tried to formalize and control the relationship, stripping it of its more transactional elements and reframing it as a civic institution. As a woman in Spartan society, you would have understood this as a simple fact of life. Your husband would have had such a relationship in his youth. He may even be a mentor to a boy now. It was the primary emotional bond in a man's life before he was required to marry. This has led many historians to a provocative conclusion that the strange, cold, and distant nature of Spartan marriage was a direct consequence of this system. Marriage was a man's duty to the state. His relationship with his protege was his primary emotional commitment. Your role was to produce his heir. The boy's role was to inherit his honor. This system, this toolbox love, served the state perfectly. It created fierce loyalty within the army, provided a mechanism for transmitting Spartan values, and kept the men emotionally invested in the all-male world of the military, preventing the softening influence of a deep attachment to a wife or family. It was just one more way that private emotion was hijacked and repurposed to serve the needs of the phalanx. The time has come, after months of waiting, of feeling the public and private pressure. You go into labor. This is the moment your entire life has been building towards. It is your personal battle, your moment of supreme service to the state. As the pains begin, you are not surrounded by a comforting, anxious husband. He is in his barracks, at his mess hall, or perhaps away on campaign. Your delivery is a female-only affair, attended by your mother, female relatives, and perhaps a local midwife. The process is, like everything in Sparta, expected to be endured with stoic courage. There are no epidurals, no modern medical interventions. There is only your own strength, the accumulated result of years of physical training. The Spartan belief was that your athletic upbringing, the running, the wrestling, the discus throwing, was not just to make you healthy, but to prepare your body specifically for this ordeal. A strong, fit body, they reasoned, would endure the rigors of childbirth more easily and recover more quickly. You are acutely aware of what is at stake, your own life, of course, but just as importantly, the life and quality of the child you are about to bring into the world. You are not just giving birth. You are completing a manufacturing process. The final product must be perfect. Mortality rate for both mother and child in the ancient world was terrifyingly high. Childbirth was one of the leading causes of death for women. This is why the Spartans honored women who died in labor with the same respect as men who died in battle. They were both seen as casualties in the state's perpetual war for survival and supremacy. A tombstone with your name on it was the highest honor you could receive, but it was an honor you had to die to get, as you labor. The words of other Spartan mothers, the famous, tough-as-nails quotes you were raised on, might echo in your mind. Come back with your shield. We're on it. It is a reminder that both you and the child you are bringing forth are expected to be strong or die. There is no middle ground, no room for weakness. This intense focus on strength and perfection at birth had a dark side, beyond the initial inspection by the elders. It likely led to a culture where saving a struggling mother or a weak infant was not the highest priority. If a birth was difficult, if the child was born prematurely or was sickly, it might have been seen as a sign from the gods, a mark of inherent inferiority. While the sources don't explicitly detail the medical practices, the underlying ideology suggests a grim fatalism. A child that struggled to be born was perhaps a child, not meant to be a Spartan. Historians debate the specifics of Spartan obstetrics. Did they have skilled midwives? Did they use herbal remedies to ease pain or aid delivery? The evidence is scarce. Our picture is built more from the social ideology than from medical texts. However, we know that Greek medicine, in general, was a mixture of practical knowledge and superstitious ritual. You might have had amulets to ward off evil spirits, and you might have had a midwife who knew how to turn a breeched baby. It was a combination of the sacred and the profane, all aimed at a successful outcome. A curious detail from the broader Greek world, which likely applied in Sparta as well, was the personification of childbirth as a moment of pollution, or miasma. The button fluids of birth were considered ritually unclean. The mother and the newborn would be considered impure for a period after the delivery and would have to undergo a purification ritual. This adds another layer of ritual and anxiety to the process. You are performing a sacred duty, yet the physical act itself is seen as defiling. Finally, after hours of grueling effort, the baby is born. The first cry fills the room. The midwife or your mother quickly cleans the infant and performs the first informal inspection. Is it a boy or a girl? Does it appear whole and healthy? Is it vigorous? There is a moment of tense evaluation in the room, a preview of the official judgment to come. If the child is born healthy and strong, there is a profound sense of relief. You have done it. You have succeeded. You have presented a viable asset to the state. You have passed your great test. You can rest, knowing you have fulfilled your purpose. But the process is not over. Your child, this tiny, vulnerable creature you have just brought into the world, must now face its own first trial. The elders are waiting. You have done it. You have survived your battle. A new life, small and scrolling, is resting in your arms. For a brief, fleeting moment, this child is yours. You feel the primal, fierce rush of maternal connection, the instinct to protect this helpless being you have created. But you know this feeling is a luxury, a dangerous indulgence. The child does not belong to you. It is on loan from the state, and the state has not yet approved the loan. The process you endured as a newborn is about to be repeated for your own child. There is no time for bonding, no quiet period of recovery. Within days of the birth, your husband, or perhaps your father if your husband is away, will come to the house. He will not be there to congratulate you or to marvel at the newborn. He is there on official business. He lifts the baby from your arms. His touch is functional and impersonal, as your own father's was years ago. He wraps it in a simple cloth and carries it out of the house. You are left behind. You are not allowed to attend. You are a woman, and your part in the process is over. You can only wait. Your body aching from childbirth. Your mind a storm of anxiety. You have passed your test. But now your product is undergoing its own quality control inspection. Your husband carries the infant back to that same portico, the vestry, where the elders of the Jeris I are gathered. The scene repeats itself, a generation echo of your own first trial. The old men, their faces like weathered maps of Laconia, take the child. They unwrap it, exposing it to the elements and to their critical gaze. They are the ultimate arbiters of life and death. Their criteria are as cold and unforgiving as they were for you. They examine the baby's limbs, its spine, its head. They are looking for any sign of weakness, deformity, or what they would consider an ill omen. A club foot, a misshapen skull, even just being too small or frail. Any of these could be a death sentence. The state's logic is absolute. Sparta is a phalanx. Every citizen is a shield, locked together to form an unbreakable wall. A weak or deformed individual cannot hold their place in the line. They are a liability, a gap in the armor that could lead to the destruction of all. Therefore, allowing such a child to live is not an act of compassion. It is an act of treason. It weakens the state. It is better, they believe, to eliminate the potential problem at the source. As they examine your child, they are not seeing a baby. They are seeing a future hoplite or a future mother of hoplites. They are assessing its potential contribution, its utility. There is no sentimentality in their evaluation. They are like farmers inspecting livestock, deciding which to keep and which to cull. This practice is the cornerstone of the Spartan eugenics program, a systematic attempt to engineer a master race of warriors. It is the thing that, more than anything else, set them apart from other Greeks and earned them their reputation for inhuman cruelty. And again, this is where historians clash. The ancient sources, particularly Plutarch, present this as a routine, bureaucratic procedure. But is that the whole story? Was it really so systematic? As mentioned before, the lack of a massive number of infant skeletons at the supposed disposal site near Mount Taygetus has led some archaeologists and historians to question the scale of the practice. Some propose a more nuanced view. Perhaps the inspection by the elders was real, but the outcome was not always a binary choice between life and death by exposure. Maybe a child with a minor, correctable flaw was allowed to live, but was relegated to a lower social status. Perhaps they were raised as a perioikos, one of the freeing oncitizens who served as craftsmen and merchants, rather than as a full Spartan warrior. This would still serve the state's eugenic purpose, keeping the elite warrior class pure, without requiring the mass killing of infants. It is a compelling theory, but it remains just that, a theory. The dominant story, the one that has echoed through history, is the one of the chasm, back in your home. You wait. The minutes stretch into an eternity. Your entire world, the future of your lineage, the validation of your own existence, hangs in the balance. being decided by a committee of old men. Every sound from the street might be your husband returning. You listen, your heart pounding in your chest. Then, you hear his footsteps. He appears in the doorway. You search his face for a sign, for any indication of the verdict. And then you look at his arms. Are they empty? If they are, a devastating, silent understanding passes between you. Your child has been judged unworthy. It has been taken to be discarded. There will be no mourning, no funeral. To grieve for a defective product would be another sign of weakness. You are expected to accept the verdict with stoic resolve and begin the process of trying again. But if he is holding the small, swaddled bundle, if he walks in and places the child back in your arms, then you have both been granted a reprieve. Your child has been approved. It has been deemed worthy of the name Spartan. A wave of relief, so profound it is almost painful, washes over you. Your baby has survived its first encounter with the state, but you know it will not be its last. The verdict is death. Your husband returns with empty arms. His face is a stony mask, betraying no emotion, as he has been trained. He speaks no words of comfort, as that would be a weakness. He simply returns to his duties, his part in this grim transaction complete. The child that you carried for 9 months, the life you fought to bring into the world, is gone. It has been taken to the apiolthete. The apiolthete, the deposits, is a place that haunts the Spartan imagination. It is a deep, shadowy ravine at the foot of the majestic Mount Taygetus, the great mountain that looms over the Spartan plain. This is where the state disposes of its failures. Your child, judged imperfect by the council of elders, is brought here and left, abandoned to the elements, to the cold of the night, to the wild animals that roam the hills. It is a death sentence delivered by neglect. The state does not actively kill the infant. It simply withdraws its protection and allows nature to take its course. This is a subtle but important distinction in the Spartan mindset. It absolves them of the direct act of murder. It is not their hand that stills the child's breath, but the unforgiving reality of the world. A creature that cannot survive a night on a mountainside, thy reason, could never have survived a battle. You are left in your home with an empty cradle and an aching body. There is no funeral, no period of mourning. To grieve publicly would be to question the judgment of the elders. To put your personal feelings above the will of the state, it would be a profound act of rebellion. You are expected to bear this loss in silence, to show the same stoic resolve as a mother whose son has fallen in battle. You must be ready to try again, to produce a better, more acceptable product next time. The psychological impact of this is immense. You have been conditioned your whole life to accept this system. But the biological imperative of a mother to protect her child is a powerful, primal force. To have that instinct brutally overridden by the state creates a deep and lasting trauma, one that must be suppressed and hidden beneath a veneer of Spartan toughness. This practice is the darkest facet of the Spartan mythos, the one that has led many to label them a monstrous, totalitarian society. But for the Spartans themselves, it was a necessary act of social hygiene. It was the ultimate expression of their commitment to quality over quantity. They did not want a large population. They wanted a perfect population. Every citizen had to be an asset. There was no room for liabilities. And yet, the historical and archaeological evidence for the apiolthete remains frustratingly ambiguous, which is why it is a point of such fierce debate. The primary literary source is Plutarch, who was writing hundreds of years after the peak of Spartan power. He was a moralist, and he may have been exaggerating the practice to make a philosophical point. When archaeologists excavated the chasm at the foot of Mount Taygetus, they did not find the massive deposits of infant bones that Plutarch's account would lead one to expect. Instead, they found the remains of about 46 individuals, mostly men between the ages of 18 and 35. This suggests that the chasm was more likely a place for disposing of criminals, traitors, or prisoners of war, not a mass grave for newborns. So what are we to believe? This is a classic historical puzzle. Did the practice happen as described, and we just haven't found the right spot? Was it a ritual exposure, where the child was left for a short time, and if it survived, it was seen as a sign from the gods and allowed to live? Or was the entire story an invention, a piece of black legend created by Sparta's enemies to demonize them. Many modern scholars lean towards a middle ground. They suggest that formal, state-sanctioned infanticide was probably rare, reserved for cases of extreme and obvious deformity. It was more likely that informal methods of culling were more common. A weak infant might be accidentally neglected or allowed to succumb to illness. The official inspection by the elders may have been more of a symbolic ritual, a way of formally accepting the child into the community, rather than a literal life or death judgment in most cases. The idea of the appeal the tame may have been more powerful than the reality. A terrifying piece of state propaganda that reminded everyone of the high standards of Spartan citizenship. But for you, in this moment, the academic debate is meaningless. Your child is gone, whether it was one of 100 thrown into a ring that year, or a rare and tragic exception. The result is the same, an empty space in your home and in your heart. You must now find the strength to carry on, to once again prepare your body and your mind for the ordeal of childbirth, hoping that next time, your offering to the state will be deemed acceptable. The shadow of Mount Tagetus falls over everything. Let us step back from your personal timeline and look at the society you have built. This intricate, ruthless machine designed for one purpose, military perfection. For centuries, it worked. The Spartan phalanx was the most feared military force in the Greek world. The discipline of the agoge, the ferocity of the warriors, the absolute unity of the state. It all culminated in victories on the battlefield, but there was a fatal flaw, a deep, ironic crack in the foundation of this eugenic paradise. The very system designed to ensure Sparta's strength would ultimately lead to its downfall. The problem was simple. Sparta was running out of Spartans. This condition is known to historians as olig anthropia, a scarcity of people. The relentless focus on quality over quantity, the brutal culling of the unfit, the high standards for citizenship, and the constant losses in warfare created a demographic death spiral. Think about all the hurdles a Spartan man had to overcome just to exist and procreate. First, he had to survive the inspection at birth. Then, he had to survive the brutal rigors of the agoge. Then, he had to survive the dangers of the battlefield as a young soldier. He also had to maintain ownership of his kale arrows, the plot of land that was the basis of his citizenship. If he lost his land due to debt or mismanagement by you, his wife, he lost his citizenship and his children would not be citizens either. The bar for entry into the elite homo IOI class was incredibly high, and the ways to fall out of it were many. A man disgraced for cowardice was cast out. A man who failed to get into her SYS Scythian was an outcast. The result was a constantly shrinking pool of full citizens. The numbers are startling. In the era of the Persian Wars, early 5th century BCE, the historian Herodotus tells us Sparta could field around 8 Gero hoplites. A little over a century later, at the disastrous Battle of Leuctra in 371 BCE, they could barely muster 2. By the time of Aristotle, just a few decades after that, he claimed there were fewer than 1. Gero's Spartan citizens led. The system was eating itself alive. The victory at Leuctra, where the bands under Epaminondas shattered the myth of Spartan invincibility, was a direct result of this demographic crisis. Though the bands used innovative tactics, but they also simply had more men. The Spartan phalanx, though still formidable, was too small. They didn't have the manpower to adapt. And what about you, the women? You were also part of this equation. You were trained to be strong and healthy, to be perfect breeding machines. But the state also demanded that you only breed with perfect men. This created a bottleneck, with a shrinking number of eligible bachelors. Many women who were perfectly capable of bearing children may have never married or had children at all. This leads to a fascinating, undebated theory about the concentration of wealth in Sparta. As the number of men dwindled due to warfare, more and more land was inherited by their daughters. This is why Aristotle complained that women owned 2/5 of the land. With fewer men to marry, these wealthy heiresses Ikael Eroi became incredibly powerful. A man might be tempted to marry a wealthy heiress even if she was the most physically fit. going against the eugenic principles of the state. This created a conflict between the state's desire for strong bodies and the individual's desire for wealth and land. Some historians argue that this concentration of wealth in the hands of a few families, often controlled by women, further exacerbated the decline by making it harder for poorer men to maintain their kale arrows and their citizenship. The very system designed to create a homogeneous, equal society appears ironically led to vast inequalities of wealth and a shrinking of the citizen class. The state's obsession with purity and perfection made it brittle. It couldn't adapt. It couldn't replenish its numbers. A weird, sad detail that illustrates this desperation comes from a later period. After the crushing defeat at Leuctra, the city faced a crisis. Many of the survivors were men who had fled the battlefield. Tremble ers tresantes who, by Spartan law, should have been stripped of all rights and utterly disgraced. But the city had lost so many men in the battle that they couldn't afford to punish the survivors. The EPH, or Gessalus, in a moment of grim pragmatism, stood before the assembly and declared that the laws should be allowed to sleep for today. They simply didn't have enough citizens left to enforce their own draconian rules. The system had broken under the weight of its own rigidity. Your life, your marriage, the children you bear or lose, it is all part of this grand, tragic experiment. You are a participant in a society that sacrificed everything: love, family, individual freedom, at the altar of military strength. And in the end, that very sacrifice was the poison that rotted it from within. The quest for the perfect soldier left Sparta with no soldiers at all. Now, pull the frame back. Look at the full sweep of the life you have lived, or the life you might have lived, within this cold, stone-walled society. You were born into a system that judged you from your first breath. Your girlhood was a training camp. Your body a public project. Your marriage was a transaction. Your husband a stranger who visited in the dark. Your home was a business. Your children assets of the state. You experienced power that other Greek women could only dream of, and a form of servitude so profound it governed your own womb. You have seen the glory of Sparta, the unshakable discipline of its men, the terror they inspired in their enemies. You have also seen the cracks in the facade. You have seen the demographic decline, the olig entropy that hollowed out the phalanx from the inside. You have felt the immense, silent pressure to produce perfect children, and you may have known the silent, unmourned grief for those who were deemed imperfect. What was it all for? The answer, for a Spartan, was simple: glory, the glory of the state, the immortality of a name matched in the annals of military history. But as you stand in the twilight of your life, perhaps looking out at the same unchanging peaks of Mount Taygetus, you might begin to question the price of that glory. The image of Sparta that has come down through the centuries is a mirage, a powerful illusion that the Spartans themselves helped to create. They were masters of propaganda. They cultivated an aura of mystery, discipline, and invincibility. They were deliberately laconic, speaking little to outsiders, which only enhanced their mystique. Writers from other cities, like Xenophon and Plato, were captivated. They saw in Sparta a cure for the perceived ills of their own societies: the messy debates of democracy, the decadence of wealth, the lack of discipline. They projected their own ideals onto Sparta, creating a vision of a perfect, orderly, philosophical warrior state. This is the Spartan mirage. But you lived behind the mirage. You knew the messy reality. You knew the constant, grinding fear of a hellish revolt, the demographic anxiety, the brutal suppression of individuality. You knew that the equality of the homo ioi was a fiction, undermined by the growing concentration of wealth in the hands of a few. Historians today spend their careers trying to peel back the layers of this mirage. They question the sources, re-examine the archaeology, and debate every strange custom. Was the crypti a real secret police, or a glorified camping trip? Was wife sharing a common practice, or a theoretical oddity? Was the inspection of infants a systematic calling, or a symbolic ritual? The truth is, for many of these questions, we will never have a definitive answer. Sparta's deliberate secrecy was incredibly effective. They left us with very few written records of their own. We see them primarily through the eyes of their rivals, their admirers, and their critics. We are forever looking at a reflection in a polished bronze shield, and the reflection is distorted. One last, strange detail to contemplate is the Spartan attitude toward love and beauty. In a society that seemed to reject all forms of softness and pleasure, they had deep appreciation for a very specific kind of beauty, the beauty of order cosmos, discipline, and physical perfection, the synchronized movements of a chorus, the perfect alignment of the phalanx, the toned physique of a young athlete. This was what they considered beautiful. Theirs was an aesthetic of the machine, not of the heart. It was a love for the ideal form, whether in a human body or in the state itself. And perhaps that is the key to understanding the profound strangeness of your life. You were not a person, but a component in a beautiful, terrible machine. Your relationships were not for love, but for function. Your life was not your own, but a contribution to a grand, and ultimately flawed, design. As you look back, you see a procession of ghosts. The infant left on the mountainside, the boy marched away to the barracks, the husband who was a shadow in the night, the soldier who never returned from battle. All were sacrifices to the beautiful, hungry machine. And you, the survivor, the manager, the mother, were the one who kept the machine running, day after day, until it finally, inevitably, ground to a halt. The glory was real, but the price was everything. And now, the journey is over. The sharp edges of Sparta begin to soften, the stark sunlight fading into a gentle, dusky haze. The rigid lines of the phalanx dissolve. The harsh commands of the instructors fade into a distant echo, like a wind sighing through the reeds by the river Eurotas. The anxieties of your Spartan life, the inspections, the pressures, the constant vigilance loosen their grip. You can feel the tension leaving your shoulders, a quiet sense of release. The great, imposing shape of Mount Taygetus is no longer a source of dread, but just a shadow against a darkening sky full of stars. The air grows still and quiet. The ghosts of the past have played their part, and now they recede, returning to the pages of history, to the dust of Laconia. There are no more duties to perform, no more standards to meet. There is only the soft, encompassing silence of the night. Your mind begins to drift, and tethered from the hard earth of ancient Greece, thoughts slow down, becoming like clouds moving lazily across the moon. You are floating now, in that peaceful, weightless space between wake of signals and sleep. The story is over. The world is quiet. Let the gentle current of your own breathing carry you deeper into rest. Let go of the day. Let go of the story. There is nothing left to do but drift and dream. The end of the article. Good night.